Welcome to the brand new episode of the Finest Hour, where we bring you inspiring stories of achievement, growth, and success. I'm Ilona Pitt, and I'm thrilled to bring you Charles Boneham, who will be conversing with me about his family business, who has been in business for over 100 years. Significant achievement. You're the joint managing director of...
That's right, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. And you guys have been supplying standard and special engineering components.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got a catalogue of products. So a lot of our business is standard items which we supply out of the catalogue, but we also manufacture items to customer drawing as well. So yeah, but the most part is for automotive, aerospace.
Yeah.
And that's where most of our products go, really.
And has it been the same?
Actually, we traditionally automotive, more aerospace, a lot of motorsport, new materials, that type of thing now. So yeah,
we'll jump into that because obviously to be in business for over 100 years, you have to change and adapt, don't
that's
you?
Right. Yeah.
So and yourself have been with the business for impressive 34 years, is that right?
1988. Is that 34 years? I don't know. Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, 1988, and I've been a director since 2003.
Right.
Yeah.
But from our conversations, I've heard you was playing on the shop floor way before that when you properly jumped in working there. Is that right?
Yeah, I did holiday jobs. I did a lot of. I did all the boring jobs that no one else wanted to do. So, when I was a 13-year-old kid or a 14-year-old kid, I was on the shop floor and during the summer holidays or Christmas holidays. I did the thoroughly boring jobs that no one else wanted to do. So yeah.
Yeah. So you definitely did your apprenticeship there.
Yeah.
And, from every bit of the job.
Yeah.
But before we jump into many finest moments, I guess you had the company has had. We also will be talking about the family business and passing the business to the next generation, because this is a century-old business that has been with the family for this long.
Yeah. And two sides of the family as well. That's the other point to it. So it's not just passed down through my side of the family. There's two sides of the family which own it. So the relationships have to be managed, and you have to have agreement on things, and we've held it together pretty well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're still here anyway, so.
So, because it's the joint managing director is your cousin, it's Peter, isn't it?
Yeah, I always say it's my cousin. He's actually probably more like a second cousin. So what it was the grandparents. You had three brothers in the grandparents' generation. There's three brothers in the business, and then my grandfather passed it down through his side of the family, my side of the family, and then obviously Peter's side of the family is passed down. His grandfather was Peter Boneham, passing it down to him, and my grandfather was John Boneham, passing it down to my side.
It all started in 1918 by your great-grandfather.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's quite a story of how he started the business following how he fell out with Indian prince and came back to UK and set up this company.
Yeah. So,
right?
so what happened was after World War I, 1918. He went over to India. He had a contract to go to a pencil manufacturing company. I think it's to manufacture the metal boxes for pencils, if I believe that to be right. And then there's a dispute over pay, and it turned into, I don't know, obviously my grandfather, a feisty fellow, who went and gave him a good punch in the chops, got him right in the square in the mouth and everything. His guards didn't take too kindly to that. They beat him up pretty good, and then what happened after there is he finished up in hospital and then prison, and then he was advised to actually I think there's a story that he even escaped from the place, but he had to get out of India fairly quick anyway. He managed to upset a lot of people, so he had to get out of India, and then he came back to Mansfield and he started Boneham and Turner. We don't know much about Turner. We think he must have been a financial backer in the early days.
Yeah.
And in the early days of the company really doing things like there's a lot of hosiery in the area, so the manufacturing the hosiery frames for that industry. So it started off doing that, and then manufacturing jigs and fixtures, and it started off in a small place in Duke Street, but it went from strength to strength.
So what's the size of a company now today?
Well, today we're over 40 people. Back in the 1960s, there are as many as probably not far off 400 people, but you've got to bear in mind this is before CNC machines, where everything was very labour intensive.
Yes.
During the we've probably been as small as probably about 20, 25 people during the 2009 recession. So we've grown, we've shrunk, we've grown back again. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So reaching the 100 years, it's a significant milestone, and you have celebrated with a big party, and people from all over the world have attended, right?
Yeah.
So would you consider that moment as the finest hour for the company itself, and how did you feel when you reached that moment?
From my own personal point of view, I think that was really our finest hour, and because there's been so many every decade's had its different challenges, and just to hit that 100-year mark and be able to celebrate it and celebrate it well. We rented out a hotel, we invited lots of people, we had people from America fly over, we had people from Switzerland fly over, we had a lot of industry friends came and joined us, have this big celebration. And it's good to be able to do that, because if I think back to it, my time as a director, it has been challenging. For instance, when I first became a director back in 2003, we had a massive product line at the time, which was building machine tool spindles, refurbishing machine tool spindles. That was loss making. It's very labour intensive. It was a big struggle. It was a big draw. We also had to relocate. So within the first couple of years of me becoming a director of the company, in the boardroom, we had to make some fairly difficult decisions of what we were going to do. Ultimately, we made the decision to come out of this product line. Fortunately, we found a buyer for it, which was very lucky. So that all worked out. So that was one of the first challenges.
For you personally, yes.
What you don't want. I mean, when my father retired in 2003, you pass the ball. I mean, last thing you want to do is drop it, isn't it? Everyone sees that, in months of inheriting the company, and it's all gone horribly wrong. But
because at the time you would have been with the company for 15 years when you passed it.
I mean, I had a couple of years out where I went backpacking and travelling and everything.
Yes,
but anyway, fortunately, we found a buyer for that product line, and then we managed to relocate, and so everything was looking good. So we managed to get ourselves into a more modern premises. We were focusing on the product lines that we wanted to focus on. Everything was looking fairly good, and then of course we got hit by the 2008 and 2009 recession.
Yes, and a lot of companies never came out from it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I remember in particular. So we've got a subsidiary company in America. I remember that was hit hardest in 2008. It seemed to hit America before it hit the UK, and I remember in 2009 that was really the worst year actually. Everyone talks about the 2008 recession, but remember 2009 was particularly bad, and then from there we managed to climb out of it and get back on track, and then we built towards this 100-year celebration, and it turned out to be a great hour.
Yes, but in terms of making sure that you achieve that longevity, what do you think? What mindset do you have to have as a business owner, as a family business, to survive those turbulent times?
Well, it's never easy. I mean, when a company's owned by two sides of the family, I mean, you really do have to talk a lot. You have to communicate
because you said what you said. It's like a rock band.
Well, it's like rock bands. Well, you look at all the great rock bands, all of them, the fantastic rock bands, and if it could have just held it together, they would have gone on making millions and millions of pounds, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
But, of course, egos get in the way. And,
I love that comparison.
It doesn't. People fall out, but it happens with family businesses. It happens with rock bands. And over the decades, I mean, there has been some squabbling within the family businesses. Back in the war years, there's my great uncle Ted, and he thought he should have the business because he's the oldest brother, and of course that didn't sit well with everyone. They had other shareholders, so there's a lot of squabbling with that.
Yeah.
He and his son had to be bought out of the business in the. Actually, it's a bit later on. It's about around the 1960s. They had to be bought out of the business. So it has had its issues,
to keep it together, because
they were all fighting and squabbling, and
really?
Yeah.
So you say the key ingredient is what? The communication, or what is it?
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to, what you have to do is you have to work well together, and I think you have to have the defined roles in the business. I mean, I like to be customer facing. I like to have a couple of days out on the road seeing customers, so I keep myself busy doing that. And then obviously you schedule in the board meetings, you communicate well. But it is a good working relationship generally. I mean, sometimes we can get on each other's nerves. I mean, I'm sure, I'm sure everyone can, can't you, when you're working closely with people. But overall, it is a good working relationship. But that is one of the challenges. So you have the challenges out in the market, and then obviously there's the internal things where you've got to communicate well and try and get on well together and keep it together. And actually, to be honest with you, one of the things is Peter and myself, we've drafted out of a bit of a mission statement, and really, really the key thing is what our goal is to pass the business on to the next generation in a better condition than we've inherited it. So we're both focused on that. So it's not like we want to fatten the goose up for Christmas and then
sell it or forget about it.
What we want to, we both agreed, you know, we both got
so that's your focus to actually make sure it stays in the family just as it's.
Yeah.
So what, you sat down one day, or when did you do that? When did you? What's the story behind that?
I think in the early days, I think when Peter's father retired, we established this early on. We said, look, what is it that we want to do with this business? And I think we both agreed that what we want to do is grow it and pass it on to the next generation in a better condition than we inherited it. So we regard ourselves as custodians of it. I mean, so if you look at it, I mean, my father inherited the company. He passed it on to me. I've inherited it. It's not like I was a founder of it or anything. I've inherited it. So I'm a custodian of that business at the moment. And hopefully if I can, you know, I've got a 15-year-old son, and he says he wants to come into the business. So it would be good if I can pass it on in a healthier condition than I've inherited it, really. So what about your son, which is quite interesting, because I always ask people on this podcast, like, if what advice they would give to themselves, their past selves. And when you start talking about it, you start talking about your son, like, straight away. I said, so you see your almost your son as yourself, you know, the next generation. So your younger self.
Your younger self. So what advice would you give your younger self?
So for me, my advice to him would be, one thing I didn't do. So I left school and I just did an apprenticeship straight away. And apart from the 2.5 years where I went backpacking around, I didn't really. I mean, I did casual work whilst I was backpacking around, you know, all sorts.
And it was
of
quite it was quite a cool backpacking, though. You've been everywhere.
Yeah, I like to think everything I do is pretty cool, but I don't know. But it's all casual work that I did. But what I think I'd like my son to do is, if he's going to come into this industry, I would like to see him spend some time in this industry, but outside our company. So, for instance, if our target customer base is aerospace, I don't know, but if he spent some time in an aerospace company and learning about all that kind of stuff, I think that'd be a really good thing for him to do. So stay within the industry, but not necessarily straight into the company. And also the other thing I learned is there's no rush to come into the company. You don't need to rush to be in the business. Hopefully it's always going to be there, and and hopefully it's in safe hands at the moment.
So you're not looking to retire anytime soon.
No, I enjoy it.
Plenty of time.
So I definitely enjoy it. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't be in it. And I like the work that I do within the company, and seeing the customers and everything. That's something that I enjoy doing. And so my advice to my son William would be to bide his time. Get some work out in the industry first. Spend it can be years, and then eventually.
I think it's actually quite good, because if he's exposed to other experiences, he'll bring them to the family business. So it's actually beneficial for the company. You're strategic here, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Because also it's like being hands-on on what the customer's seeing, isn't it? Because I haven't had any experience in the aerospace industry, and also a big customer base of ours is the motorsport industry, and I don't have any hands-on experience in that. And if, let's say for argument's sake, my son was to go into one of those industries, you can learn all about it, and you could probably even give you some good pointers of what are some other good products to get into. Where are these companies struggling to source product and parts and everything. So, I think that'd be good advice. I think that'd be.
You are a pretty cool dad, you've got it all worked out for him. You just need to follow the cool path because you can, go and explore, check out our places, come back to the family business when you're ready, and we'll with open arms have you there.
It's been there over 100 years, so hopefully it's not going anywhere, and you can contribute to it when the time's right.
So in terms of like this 34 years you've been in business, what would you say was the most significant change that you've seen?
Well, we've seen a lot of manufacturing go away from the UK.
And that's
and we're
sad.
beginning to see,
it's terrible.
exactly. But I think we're beginning to see a lot of this manufacturing coming back to the UK, and there's a lot of defence spending cuts, and I don't know. I think we're going to see. I believe we're going to see a lot more manufacturing coming back to the UK. I think we're going to see the manufacturing sector grow over the coming decades, because I think there's a need for the UK to be manufacturing at home.
Yes.
So I think it is gradually coming back, but it has been one of the big challenges, really. I mean, we've had to adopt the product line. We've had to look at new markets. We do a lot of business in America. I normally travel to America 3 or 4 times a year and travel out into those territories, but that's changed a lot as well. When I first started going out to America, most of the business we did was up and down the East Coast, and now it's right across America where we do the business, because at one point it's pretty much focused on the automotive in Michigan, General Motors and Ford, and then a lot of that business dried up, and then we had to go after aerospace and other industries, really. So it's down in the southeast and up west coast. We do, we supply parts to SpaceX, Virgin. So we get involved with some quite cool things, I think.
Just my last question for you, Charles. What inspires you to keep going? Because obviously you do what you do. You do it great. You're passionate. But what inspires you? Like, do you draw inspiration from places, people? What is it for you?
I'm a very big boxing fan, actually. So I always like great stories of where things come good, actually. So I mean, a big inspiration to me was Larry Holmes, and when I used to watch Larry Holmes box back in the 1980s. There's times where he's out on his feet and everything looked hopelessly lost, and he used to turn it around and come up good and everything. And people like Tommy the Hitman Hearns were a bit like that. And I think it's very inspirational. I always love stories of people like Ernest Shackleton and where he managed to lose his ship and everything in the south on the South Pole. And I always like things where it all looked hopelessly lost and people managed to
pull it together.
And I think sometimes you've always got to be a bit like that in business. So sometimes things can look terrible. But if you don't never give up and you never despair, things can always come good, can't they? And I think that's I always like stories like that.
Fantastic. And I think it's testament to you and your character and the fact that this company has been going on for over 100 years. And for me personally, I want to congratulate you and the team. But
that's a key thing as well, actually.
Because it's people, isn't it?
It's about having a great team. Boneham and Turner, I think one of our success. We had a guy retire recently who given a 60-year service.
60 years.
60-year service, and he retired. But he was a skilled tool maker, and we've always had those good skills within the company. And I think we've always recruited well, and I think that's a key thing. You've always got to surround yourself with good people, because no one can single-handedly do anything, and you've got to bring in good people around you, people with good expertise. You need to bring in people who far cleverer than yourself, who can contribute well to the company, understand who you are as a company, what you're trying to do, and have a good team around you. Definitely, that's a key thing to it all.
Yes, and
I think everyone knows that. Really, as a company,
it's so obvious, but it's
obviously
to have a company for 100 years, there's always been a team behind it.
Yeah, it's got to be
because
good
it's
people,
on its
well-trained
own.
People.
On its own, it's just an empty entity, isn't it? It's just a name.
Yeah.
And it would just die.
Yeah.
So all the people, congratulations to you and the team, and hopefully, I wish you and Bonham and Turner to flourish for the generations to come.
Oh, thank you, Ilona.
Yes?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
And to our audience, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next time. And I'll bring you another inspiring story. I hope you enjoyed this one. I certainly did. Thank you very much.